Hi, what's up everyone? I am GC Rock and welcome to the video. Today I'm going to be showing you all 50 exotics that are in the Division 2 at the time of making this video. So every single one of them. I'll be showing you a little bit of gameplay with each exotic, telling you what they do, and also explaining to you how you can get a hold of them. So first up, we have the Eagle Bearer. This is an exotic assault rifle, and it's a variant of the P416 G3. It comes with 4 mods. It comes with the Eagle Eye Sight, which gives critical hit chance of 10%. Bullet Eyrie, which gives you 30 rounds. Talon Grip, which gives you 10% weapon handling. And a Jagged Beak, which gives you 15% critical hit damage. So the Eagle Bearer's talent is called the Eagle Strike. Accuracy is increased as you continuously fire up to 30%. Headshot kills grant the tenacity buff for 15 seconds. And the strength of tenacity is increased by 1% for body shots and 5% for headshots. And then the tenacity talent is 40 to 80% of damage taken is delayed until the buff expires. All of the total delayed damage is reduced for each enemy killed, while the buff is active up to 100% with 3 kills. The Eagle Bearer is a raid exclusive exotic, which means for the most part you can only get this from the Dark Hours raid. You have 1% chance per week from bosses on the Dark Hours raid, and then you have 10% chance from the chest at the end every time that you open it. Just bear in mind that this does not count on discovery, and the raid does need to be on normal. However, you can get the Eagle Bearer away from the raid now. They have added the Eagle Bearer to the Dark Zone loot pool. It's a very, very small drop rate, but you can farm the Dark Zone. There's a chance that this will drop, and you'll need to extract it when you do get a hold of it. I don't know the exact drop rate for the Dark Zone, but let me put it this way. It'll be easier to join our community and get help from one of our great teams to get this weapon if this is what you want. We're going to continue on with all of the exotics that are either locked behind content or projects. And next up is the Bighorn. This is another assault rifle. For the mods, we have a Fire Select Scope, which gives you 30% headshot damage. Tension Spring Magazine for 10% reload speed. A Carbon Steel Muzzle for 10% accuracy. And then Bighorn Horn Grip for 10% stability. The Bighorn exotic talent is called Big Game Hunter. When scoped, it switches to semi-automatic fire mode, dealing 450% weapon damage with each shot. Headshots grant 4% headshot damage, stacks up to 25 times, and once at full stacks, 10 stacks decay every 4 seconds until all stacks have been removed. Headshots delay decaying of stacks. The Bighorn is locked behind legendary content. You can get it from legendary missions or legendary summit. If you're playing legendary missions, I believe it's got a 5% drop rate for every boss. So you can keep on farming that. It's not limited to once per week or anything like that. You could keep on doing District Union Arena Legendary over and over, and you'll have that 5% chance of it dropping every single time. But you can also go on the summit and play the summit on Legendary, and any Legendary named enemy will have a chance of dropping this item. You have a great chance on boss floors, so that's every 10th floor. And again, just like the Eagle Bearer, this has been added to the Dark Zone loot pool as well. So it's a very, very small chance. I'm not 100% again what that chance is. But you have a small chance of this dropping in the Dark Zone for you to extract if it does. And again, if you need any help with this weapon, make sure you join our Discord. The Capacitor is another exotic assault rifle. The mods on this one is a conductive focal, which gives you 10% critical hit chance. You have a voltage generator for an extra 11 rounds. Discharge electrode for 30% critical hit damage. And dielectric safety grip for 10% weapon handling. The talent on the Capacitor is called Capacitance, where shooting enemies builds stacks up to a total of 40, and each stack grants 1.5% skill damage. After 5 seconds, stacks decay 1 per second, but for each skill tier that you have on your build, you get 7.5% weapon damage. The Capacitor is locked behind the Summit game mode. When you play this game mode, you're able to select some challenges to try and do as you play through. All you have to do is complete 5 of these challenges and the Capacitor will be given to you. And unlike the Eagle Bearer and the Bighorn, when you get a hold of this, it's going to be added to your open loot pool, providing you have it on the character that you're using or it's in your stash. And what this means is it will drop from exotic caches if you open them, and it can also drop from targeted loot if you target assault rifles. The Chatterbox exotic SMG is next, and the mods that we get on this is modified optics for a critical hit chance of 15%, a Chatterbox magazine for an extra 10 rounds, a Chatterbox canister for 10% weapon handling, and a Chatterbox muzzle for 5% critical hit damage. The talent we get on this is called Incessant Chatter. When you reload, rate of fire is increased by 20% for each enemy within 15 meters for the duration of that magazine. And it has a max stack of 5, so you can increase your fire rate by 100% if you have 5 enemies near you when you reload. Also, kills will refill 50% of your magazine. And the Chatterbox quest can be quite the grind. You need to find parts across 3 areas of the DC map. These parts have a chance of dropping out of hyena faction boxes, and you have to search these faction boxes in each of these 3 different areas until you find the different 3 parts. So the 3 areas are Downtown East, Judiciary Square, and Federal Triangle. Now, you can zoom in on the maps because if you have been across some of these faction boxes before, they will be highlighted. So you can see I've got 2 hyena faction boxes there in Downtown East. So I'm able to farm them that way, just go around and open them. I will need hyena keys to open them. And there's just a chance that these parts will drop. In Downtown East, you're looking for the loaded canister. In Federal Triangle, you're looking for the creative mag. And in Judiciary Square, you're looking for the modified mods. I was on stream recently when one of these dropped for me. So we were doing District Union Arena and someone opened this hyena faction box here. You'll notice that the modified mods were there for me to collect. So this is what it looks like when you do open them. You can see the hyena faction box on screen as well. Once you have all 3 parts from the 3 different areas, you need to come to bank headquarters. Just play the mission and you're going to come to the part where you're going to get to these double elevator shafts. You'll have to open them, but just over to the left, you're going to find a secret key hidden here on the wall. We're just going to open the panel and grab this key. Once we've got that key, we can go down the elevator shaft and continue with the mission. And then once you reach this bank vault, you'll be where you need to be. Just enter the code, open the door, and just beyond this, you're going to be able to use that key that we got earlier. Just head to this door here. With the key, you're going to be able to use the key card. And then there'll be one final hyena box in here that you'll get the blueprint out of. So you will need the other 3 parts, as already mentioned. Once you've got them and you open this box here, the blueprint will drop. Now, I've already got it, so I'm not able to get the blueprint again. But that's how you get the blueprint and the 3 parts to then go and craft the Chatterbox. Once crafted, this will be added to your loot pool, which means you can get it again out of exotic caches and targeted loot SMGs. And remember, like I said at the start, if you do have a friend that already has a Chatterbox and you don't want to do this project, then your friend can help you farm for it. If they get it and can share it with you, you'll be able to get a hold of it and then you won't need to do this project. Next up is probably one of the best weapons in the game, and it's called the Ouroboros. It's an exotic SMG, and the mods that you get on this one is the Ouroboros optics that give you 10% critical hit damage, the Ouroboros magazine for 25% reload speed, the Ouroboros underbarrel for 10% critical hit chance, and the Ouroboros muzzle for 10% rate of fire. The talent on this is called Roll Them All, and I don't think many people even care for this. But what it does is, when the agent has a status effect applied to them, 50% of the ammo in their next magazine will apply the same status effect to their targets, and this effect will only occur during combat. Now, to get a hold of the Ouroboros, you have to play the Paradise Lost incursion. Right now, at the time of recording, it's the only incursion on the game, and you have 1% chance every single time you run the incursion to get it to drop off one of the bosses. You also get a key, and there's a chest at the end, just like with the raids. So at the end of Dark Hours and Iron Horse, there's a chest that you can open. This works similar. You get a key to open a chest at the end of Paradise Lost, and there's a 10% chance the Ouroboros will drop inside of that chest. That chest also guarantees an exotic when you open it as well. So you'll always get one additional exotic anyway, and if the Ouroboros drops, you'll get 2. Now, unlike the raid exotics, they haven't brought the Ouroboros out of the incursion yet and added it to the Dark Zone, like with the Eagle Bear we mentioned earlier. That could be got in the Dark Zone. The Ouroboros can't. This is exclusively to the incursion. You can matchmake the incursion though, and to increase your chances, you can also play the incursion with multiple characters. With each character that you use, each week you'll have a key to open the box. So you have 4 characters, you can open that box 4 times. And if you need a team to help you through the incursion, as I mentioned earlier, make sure you check out our Discord because we have teams helping with this daily on every single platform. The Lullaby shotgun is a different variant of the Sweet Dreams exotic shotgun. It's exactly the same, to be honest with you. It's got some damaged optics on it that give you 15% accuracy, a modified feed system for 15% reload speed, and a hardened grip for 25% optimal range as its mods. And the talent that you get on the Lullaby is called Sandman, which is the same as the Sweet Dreams also, where melee attacks instantly kill non-elite enemies, and that's on a 15-second cooldown. Before I show you how to unlock that, I do just want to go over the Ruthless as well. The Ruthless is a different variant to the Merciless. The mods that come with this is an unidentified custom Russian sight for 10% accuracy, a Ruthless magazine for 10% reload speed, a Ruthless grip for 10% weapon handling, and Mayhem's muzzle for 10% stability. The Ruthless comes with an exotic talent called Binary Trigger. This weapon fires on trigger pull and release. If both bullets hit the same enemy, you gain a stack. At 7 stacks, shooting an enemy deals 500% amplified damage and creates a 7-meter explosion, dealing 500% weapon damage, consuming the stacks. Now, why I wanted to cover both of those weapons together is because you can still get a hold of these, and the only way to do that is to head to the store. In the store in-game, you can go to add-ons, and there's a deluxe pack that you can purchase. I'm not 100% sure what the price of this is. My guess is going to be 2,000 Phoenix credits. I could be wrong. It could be 1,000. I'm not sure. If you do know the price of this, please drop it down in the comments so people know. But you have to buy this deluxe pack. With this deluxe pack, you get the Lullaby exotic shotgun and the Ruthless exotic rifle. You also get some other bits and bobs as well. And it's up to you whether you think this is worth it or not, because if it is 2,000 Phoenix credits, that is going to cost you £15.29 on the UK store. And in all honesty, the Lullaby and the Ruthless, as we just said, are exactly the same as the variants. The Lullaby is basically the Sweet Dreams, the Ruthless is basically the Merciless. They just have different skins. Moving on to another exotic rifle now, we have the Ravenous. The mods that come with this rifle are the Predatory Optics for 5% critical hit chance, Gluttonous Magazines for 10% reload speed, Devouring Maw for 5% critical hit damage, and Wolf's Claw for 10% stability. The Ravenous has a talent called Jerry and Frecky. On trigger pull, fire both barrels at once. When fired from the right shoulder, hits add offensive primers and defensive primers when fired from the left shoulder. Hits from one shoulder will detonate all of the opposite shoulder's primers when present. When detonated, each offensive primer deals 100% weapon damage, while each defensive primer grants 4% bonus armor and 10% amplified damage to armor plates for 5 seconds. Primer effectiveness is doubled at 10 stacks. The Ravenous is another raid exotic, and originally it was exclusive to the Iron Horse raid. And you can still get it from there. You have 1% chance per week from any of the bosses on the Iron Horse raid. Then there's a 10% chance from the chest at the end of the Iron Horse raid. So it works the same as the Eagle Bearer does on Dark Hours, but this is on Iron Horse. You can run this with multiple characters if you want to have the same odds. And just like the Eagle Bearer, this is also now in the Dark Zone. So if you want a very small chance of it dropping in the Dark Zone, you can farm that. And as I said earlier, I'm not sure on what the drop rate is, but it is very, very low. You've definitely got a better chance of getting this from the raid. And if you need a team to help you, I've already mentioned this a few times, but join our Discord. We do have teams helping daily on every single platform. The Vindicator is another exclusive exotic rifle. The mods on this are the AR scope for 15% accuracy, a simulation magazine for 5 extra rounds, a loop grip for 15% stability, and a velocity amplifier for 10% optimal range. The Vindicator comes with a talent called Ortis Assault Interface, which is, while scoped, the weapon will highlight a random body section of each enemy. The weapon amplifies damage by 40% weapon damage to highlighted body sections. This is exclusive to the NSA vendor, and if you've played Descent, you know what this is. The NSA vendor is a vendor where you can spend all of your currency that you earn from the Descent game mode. And the Vindicator can be found at this vendor for 350 credits. You will find the vendor at the Descent entrances. And what's different about this exotic to most is that it doesn't come with a reconfigure blueprint, which means you're going to want to check this vendor every time that it resets. So when you're going to want to farm for this is going to be when it's selling one with damage to target out of cover as the third attribute. When it is, you'll want to spend 350 NSA credits to get this. That isn't too bad. If you can complete Nemesis runs, you're going to be able to get 350 credits, I'd say, in about 4 complete Nemesis runs. There is no other way of getting this item. It's not added to the open loot pool once you've got it, so it's not like it'll drop out of exotic caches or targeted loot, so you can't even get friends that already have this to help you. It has to be bought from here. The next exotic that we have is the Nemesis Sniper Rifle. The mods on this exotic are called the Nemesis Digital Scope, which gives you 45% headshot damage, the Nemesis Bolt that gives you 10% reload speed, the Nemesis Bipod for 5% weapon handling, and the Nemesis Barrel for 5% critical hit damage. The exotic talent that you get on the Nemesis is called the Electromagnetic Accelerator. Shots fired deal 0 to 100% weapon damage based on how long the trigger is held before releasing. So it's all about holding that trigger, getting the perfect shot, and getting that 100% extra weapon damage. To get a hold of the Nemesis, you must complete the Nemesis quest. Now, this can be quite a long one, and I do suggest if you play this game with friends and a friend already owns the Nemesis, then just farm targeted loot sniper rifles with them, or have them open up exotic caches that they can share with you and hope for a Nemesis, because you'll probably get one quicker this way than completing the quest. But if the quest is your only option, I'm going to take you through it now. Once you reach level 40 on the Division 2, you will unlock invaded missions, and you'll have the opportunity to take on Tidal Basin. Now, you've got to complete all of the invaded missions first and then the Stronghold to get Tidal Basin unlocked, and every Tuesday this resets and you have to do it again. Well, once you're able to play Tidal Basin, you just want to run through this mission. And quite early on, you've got to come up to this location here. You'll come through this gate and you'll be asked to look for a terminal to patch Isaac into. It's just inside of this building, like you can see here with the cursor, and you just need to interact with this laptop. After interacting with the laptop, though, before continuing, head upstairs because there's a key, and you want this key for later on in the mission to open up a door. This is right towards the end of the mission. As you clear out the hovercraft and head to the back, you'll be wanting to go through the door to exit and go outside and reach the top of the hovercraft. But before you do that, in this area here, you've got this door. And because we picked up that key earlier, this keypad is green. We're able to input the code and open the door. Now, as long as you don't have the Nemesis in your stash or on your character, when you open this loot box, you are going to get an Adestria SR1 sniper rifle. Because I already have the Nemesis, I've not got that on this occasion. I got the G28. But if you get the Adestria SR1, what you need to do is dismantle it And by dismantling it, you're going to receive a marksman rifle scope component. And this will be the start of the Nemesis quest. This is where the quest gets quite lengthy, because you still need 3 more parts and a blueprint. The 3 parts are the barrel, bolt, and stock, and they can be found on the 3 different invaded strongholds. One will be on the invaded DUA stronghold. One will be on the invaded Capitol Hill building stronghold. And then the 3rd one is going to be on the invaded Roosevelt Island stronghold. Now, as we've already said, these strongholds reset every week, these invaded strongholds. The invaded missions do. And there's more strongholds that go invaded than just them. You've also got Manning National Zoo, so it's not always a guarantee you're going to have one of these. You've basically got to wait every single week until you can complete every single one of these strongholds on invaded to get the rest of these 3 parts. And you can't do that until you've got the first part that unlocked the quest at Tidal Basin. Now, once you eventually do get all of the parts, you still need the blueprint. And when I made this video before, you could only get the blueprint after you got all the parts. So you had to wait for all of those invaded strongholds, get them all done, and then you'd have to go and get the blueprint. And the blueprint only drops on an invaded Grand Washington hotel. The good news is now that they've updated this project where you can get the blueprint at any time. So once you have got the first part from Tidal Basin, you have dismantled that sniper rifle to get that part, and you've kind of opened up the project. From then, whenever Grand Washington Hotel is invaded, you'll be able to get the blueprint. So this means if you're still waiting on a different stronghold to go invaded to get another part, that's fine. You can get this blueprint at any point. So make sure you keep an eye for Grand Washington Hotel to go invaded so you can get the blueprint. Once you have all of the parts in the blueprint, you'll be able to come to your crafting station and you will find the Nemesis blueprint here to craft your first Nemesis. You'll see that mine's locked, and that's because I didn't want to do all this on my PC account, and I got a friend to drop me a Nemesis, and you actually never need to do this if you do that. However, if you are a bit of a completionist, you'll probably want to go and do it one day anyway, just so something's not locked. But once you get a hold of the Nemesis, even if it's dropped from a friend and you don't bother doing the project, you will still get a reconfigure blueprint for it. So I'm able to craft more if I want, and also when I have a hold of the Nemesis, it's in my open loot pool, so I can grind more if I want as well on targeted loot and exotic caches. The Liberty is next on our list of exotics. The mods that come with this sidearm is the Liberty sight that gives you 5% headshot damage, a Liberty grip to give you 15% weapon handling, a trigger mechanism for 15% rate of fire, and Liberty customs for 5% critical hit chance. The talent on the Liberty is called Liberty or Death. Hits grant 2% weapon damage, which stack up to 30 times, and headshots will consume all your stacks, repairing your shield for 3% per stack. And again, the Liberty is part of a quest. The only way to get the Liberty is to complete this quest unless you have a friend that will grind for you that already has the Liberty and will share it with you if it drops. The Liberty isn't that bad to farm for though. This quest is quite easy. In fact, you start this off before you even reach endgame, when you're completing a level 30 capital building stronghold. So that'll be the first time you do capital building. You're gonna get an exotic part to drop off one of the named bosses leading up to the final area. You'll get the pistol trigger and mechanism after you kill them. Then once you have this and once you enter endgame, you just got to complete 3 different missions on higher difficulties. That'll be American History Museum, Viewpoint Museum, and Space Administration HQ. I believe they have to be on hard or above, and you're going to get the pistol receiver and paint job, the pistol sight and rail, and the pistol grip and tags. And once you've got all 3 of those parts, the Kendra's Liberty blueprint will automatically drop for you as well. This means you'll be able to go to the crafting station and craft one of these. However, you will need a D50 sidearm too. You won't be able to craft it without that. So make sure you farm yourself a D50 in the process. And once unlocked, the Liberty will be added to your general loot pool. It will drop on targeted loot, and it will drop in exotic caches. The Regulus is another exotic sidearm, and on this exotic sidearm, it comes with an engraved drum for 10% reload speed, and an engraved muzzle for 20% accuracy. And the talent is the favourite of many. It's called Regicide, where headshot kills grant a 5-meter explosion, dealing 400% weapon damage and applying bleed to all enemies that are hit. This is, however, another exotic that is going to be quite hard to get because it is locked behind Iron Horse. And unlike the Ravenous and the Eagle Bearer and also the Bighorn on Legendaries, this has not been added to the Dark Zone. So the only way of getting this right now is through the Iron Horse raid. And what you have to do is you have to complete your first Iron Horse raid first of all. On your first completion of this raid, you're going to get 2 projects where you have to donate materials and items. In fact, I think most people will need a second Iron Horse run in order to complete these projects because they want materials that are out of the raid. So you might need like 2 Iron Horse runs just to get those first 2 projects done, and then there'll be another 2 projects that unlock that you need to complete. And then once you've completed all 4 of those projects, you then have to wait for a fresh week. So, for example, say I finished a project on a Friday or a Saturday. I then have to wait to the next Tuesday when the game has its weekly reset. Only then can I go back into Iron Horse and Regulus parts are going to drop. You'll get 1 part off of every boss, but then you also need to pick up the raid keys again because the final part will be in the chest at the end of the raid. And then one more downfall to this. Even when you've got all of your parts for the Regulus and you've done all of that work, if you've not been working on your blueprints, there's a chance you might not be able to craft it. If we head over to the Regulus here, you'll see that I need all of these parts in order to craft it. But then, if I scroll down, I need a Police 686 Magnum replica. So if we go over to sidearms, you'll see that I have a Police 686 Magnum and I can craft that, but that won't work. It has to be the replica. So if you've not unlocked this replica blueprint yet, you're not going to be able to craft this Regulus because you can't just go and farm a Magnum through targeted loot or find one in the open world. It has to be this replica, and the only way you can get this replica is by crafting it. The only way you can craft it is by having the blueprints. So you may have to work on a lot of control points in order to unlock this first before you can get your Regulus. And again, if you need any raid help whatsoever, make sure you check out our Discord where we're helping daily. Next up, we are moving on to our first exotic gear piece in the form of the Ridgeway's Pride exotic chest piece. This chest piece comes with weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage, and the exotic talent is called Bleeding Edge, where shooting enemies within 15 meters applies bleed to the target. You repair 3 to 48% of your armor per second for every enemy that is bleeding within 15 meters, and the repair strength per number of bleeding enemies is 3% for 1, 6% for 2, 12% for 3, 24% for 4, and 48% for 5. The only way to get a hold of the Ridgeway's Pride exotic chest piece is again through another quest, unless you have friends that already have it. And again, I strongly recommend using your friends if you do, because they're able to farm it in the targeted loot or exotic caches. It's going to be much easier for you to do that with them so they can then share it with you than take on this quest. But if the quest is your only option, I'm now going to explain what to do. You'll need to make your way to the summit. There are 5 exotic components that you need to find in the summit before completing it to earn yourself a project. The first item is called the normal body armor, which can be found between floors 1 to 20. The hard shoulder pads can be found between floors 21 and 40. Challenging hunting knife can be found between 41 and 60. The heroic flag patch can be found between floors 61 and 80. And the legendary dog tags can be found between the floors 81 and 100. Now, it used to be a little bit different back in the day, but now it's quite easy. You're able, well, I say it's quite easy, because you're able to set up the difficulty exactly how you want to. So you can put the difficulty to normal. You can have all directives off, and you can just fly through this trying to look for these items. Just remember that each item are on those set of floors that I mentioned. Once you've got one, tick it off, and then you want to focus on the other floors to get the other items. All of these parts are random drops out of summit chests, and the summit chests will appear every 3 floors. But you have to find the summit chest access key. You can see I've got one here, the summit access key, and these will drop on any of the 3 floors prior to the chest. So right now I'm working up to my chest on floor 3. This key could be anywhere on floor 1, 2, or 3. And it keeps going on like that. So for floor 6, it could be on 4, 5, or 6, and so on and so on. Once you've found the key, you'll be able to open the chest. So as I now approach the end of floor 3 and I'm about to take the elevator up to floor 4, there's going to be a chest nearby. It's normally in a locked room like this. Sometimes it's right next to the elevator, but you'll find your summit chest inside of these rooms next to the lift. With the key, you'll be able to loot it, and then you have a chance of these parts dropping. This can be a hard grind. Remember, the normal body armor will only drop out of these chests between floors 1 and 20. The hard shoulder pads will only drop out of these chests between floor 21 and 40. The challenging hunting knife will be between floors 41 and 60 out of this chest. The heroic flag patch between floors 61 and 80 out of this chest. And finally, the legendary dog tags will be in this chest between floors 81 and 100. Now, what I recommend you doing, if you've not got a friend that's willing to share the Ridgeway's Pride with you, at least have a friend that can save floors for you. Because imagine going through floors 80 and 100, not getting the part and having to start all the way at floor 1 again to get back to 80 just to try and find the legendary dog tags. If you had somebody that had a floor 80 saved for you, you can at least keep jumping back onto them to get straight back to floor 80. And then once you have all 5 of those parts, it's not even done yet. You then have to complete floor 100 and extract. Floor 100 is where you face the hunters, and once you've killed all these, that's your final challenge. You'll head outside and you'll extract from the building. And it's at this point, as long as you've got all 5 of those parts, that you are going to unlock your first of 2 projects. This is now where it gets a little bit easier though. For the first project, you'll have to donate a weapon with the talent Sadist on it. You'll have to donate a gear piece with the perfectly unbreakable talent. So that's the named Badger Tough chest piece, that is. And you'll have to donate an exotic component. Once you have done that, you'll get a secondary project. This one's a little bit longer. You must neutralize 3 named hyenas and donate 3 hyena keys. Neutralize 3 named True Sons and donate 3 True Sons keys. Neutralize 3 named Outcasts and donate 3 Outcast keys. Neutralize 3 named Cleaners and donate 3 Cleaner keys. Neutralize 3 named Rikers. Donate 3 Black Tusk keys. Neutralize 2 Rogue Agents. And neutralize 2 Hunters. And then once you've completed the second project, you'll have some items gifted back to you, including the Ridgeway's Pride exotic blueprint. You'll then be able to craft the Ridgeway's Pride exotic chest piece at the crafting station. And now that you have it, you'll also be able to farm it out of exotic caches and with targeted loot. The last exotic, which I am putting under the category of exclusive or project related, is the Dodge City Gunslinger's holster. This gear piece comes with weapon damage, weapon handling, and headshot damage. The exotic talent is called Quick Draw. While your pistol is holstered, gain a stacking buff every 0.3 seconds up to 100. When you swap to it, your first shot consumes the buff and deals 10% damage per stack. This deals headshot damage to anywhere that you hit. Again, like with most of these project-related exotics, if you have a friend that has this, you can just farm it with them via targeted loot, or they can share their exotic caches with you, and you can get this without doing the project. It's not too difficult, this one, if you do need to do the project. Once you have reached endgame, you're going to have an exotic project available to purchase from Ainara, the crafting station in the White House. Just go and interact with her and buy the project. Once you have the project, your first task is going to be to take over the Riverside gas station on any difficulty level. You'll find the fast leather belt in the control point cache. Once you have this, there are a few more items that you still need to go and farm for. There's the ornate leather holster, an inverted leather holster, and an oiled hammer guards. And to get these, you must complete a Hyena level 4 control point, an Outcast level 4 control point, and a True Sons level 4 control point. And the best way to do this from your map here is just to go into your global settings and make sure that you change your global difficulty to heroic. As long as it's heroic, you're going to be having level 4 control points. And you can turn directives off to make it easier. You don't need them to be on. And if you've completed all of your control points, you can reset your control points here as well. And then all you've got to do is hover over different control points to see what faction they are. This one here is an Outcast control point, so I can go there to get the Outcast one done. If we go down the Capitol Hill building, we've got a True Sons control point at the crash site. And then if we go north from there, we've got Hotel Infirmary, which is a Hyenas control point. You could do any Outcast, any Hyena, and any True Sons. As long as they're at level 4, you're going to get these 3 items that you need. You'll know that you're doing it correctly because the boss of each of these control points when you're defending them is going to have a cowboy hat on. With all 3 of these control points done and 4 items collected now, you'll complete a project, but you're going to unlock another project. And your task for this one is going to be to obtain the holster rind component. You can see the location of this in the image on screen now, just east to the White House. However, what you're looking for here is some Black Tusk enemies, and they only show up just after 12 PM in-game. So what you're going to want to do is just wait down the street from where I've marked here. And then once it's just gone 12 PM in game, you'll be able to approach and the Black Tusks will spawn. Again, there'll be an enemy with a cowboy hat on. If you're unsure on how to find the time in game, you can literally just bring up your menu like this, and in the top right where it shows your location, it gives you your time. You can see I'm currently at 3:20 AM. And you can also find it in photo mode. If you bring up photo mode, the time will also be displayed here, again under the location. Now, it's been a while since I've done this project, but I'm pretty sure the location on the map, you'll see where I am here. We just saw this location a few moments ago, just east of the White House. And I think it's this building here. I'm pretty sure this is the location you come to after 12, and you'll get a Black Tusk spawn here with one of them wearing a cowboy hat. If it's not that building, it's just across the road in the souvenir shop. I don't think it's this one, though. I do think it's the one I just went in. But it's one of these 2 buildings. You'll get the spawn, and you'll get the item. Once you have all the parts collected, you can head back to the White House and hand the project in. You'll then be rewarded with all of the parts needed to craft the Dodge City Gunslinger's holster, including the blueprint. All you're going to need at that point is a Petrov and Providence holster in order to craft it. And as with many of the other exotics that are locked behind projects, once you have this, you can farm for it again out of targeted loot and also exotic caches. That is all for every exotic that's locked behind a piece of content or a project. The rest of the exotics I now go through will pretty much be in the open exotic loophole. This means, for the most part, you will be able to get them outside of exotic caches, even if you've never owned them before, and targeted loot, which means you can target loot on countdown and just farm for them. People will be able to share these with you, and you'll be able to use the strategies with friends and things like that. Every exotic as well also has a completely random chance of dropping off any enemy in the game. So you could get an exotic at any point. I'm now just going to go through the remaining exotics, and as I've done so far, just speak through them, give you a bit of information about them and a little bit of gameplay. We will start with the Chameleon. This is an exotic assault rifle, and the mod you get with this is a Chameleon optics with 15% critical hit chance, a Chameleon active camo processor for 20 plus rounds, a Chameleon dampener for 20% accuracy, and a Chameleon grip for 10% stability. The talent that you get on the Chameleon is Adaptive Instincts, where hitting 30 headshots grants 20% critical hit chance and 50% critical hit damage for 45 seconds. Hitting 75 body shots grants 90% weapon damage for 45 seconds. And hitting 30 leg shots grants 150% reload speed for 45 seconds. Buffs refresh when you're out of combat. You can farm the Chameleon through exotic caches and targeted loot, and also this has a chance to drop from completing bounties. The St. Elmo's engine has to be the best exotic in the game, in my opinion. A lot of people think it's the Ouroboros. I used to think that, but then I used the St. Elmo's engine and I changed my mind. This assault rifle comes with the St. Elmo's engine optic, which gives it 20% critical hit damage. It has the St. Elmo's engine magazine for 30 plus rounds, the St. Elmo's engine grip for 20% weapon handling, and the St. Elmo's engine muzzle for 20% critical hit chance. The talent on the St. Elmo's engine is called Actum Est, where shooting an enemy with this weapon will give you 1 stack. At 100 stacks, the next magazine will be 100% filled with shock ammo. Honestly, I cannot recommend this item enough. Make sure you farm for it. You can get it outside of exotic caches, and you can target loot assault rifles. The Bullet King is a exotic LMG. The mods on this are the Mag of Holding, which basically gives you the talent that we'll go over in a moment. You get the gold-plated muzzle for 5% critical hit chance, and the solid gold bipod for 10% stability. The talent is Bullet Hell, and this weapon never needs to be reloaded. For every 100 bullets that hit an enemy, you replenish some ammo to you and your allies' reserves. You would think that because this never needs to be reloaded that it would be quite OP. It does lack the damage though, so that kind of counters the talent in my opinion. But if you do want to get a hold of one of these, again, it's exotic caches or you can target loot LMG, but also it has a chance to drop from bosses of Riker missions. The Bluescreen is another exotic LMG, and the mods on this one are the Lightning Sight for 10% reload speed, the Authentication Frame for 15% weapon handling, the Dropkick Grip for 10% stability, and the Overclock Muzzle for 10% rate of fire. The talent that you get with this LMG is called the Disruptor Rounds. Shooting an enemy marks that enemy and adds a stack to the agent up to a count of 50. Shooting a marked enemy refreshes the stack and adds stacks to the agent. When you deploy a non-shield skill, remove all stacks on agent and all marked targets trigger an effect. 1 to 10 stacks will pulse the marked targets for 5 seconds. 11 to 25 stacks will pulse and disrupt the marked targets for 5 seconds. 26 to 49 stacks will pulse, disrupt, and disorient marked targets for 5 seconds. And at 50 stacks, you pulse, disrupt, and disorient marked targets and all hostiles within 10 meters of the marked targets for 5 seconds. This effect will trigger immediately if any marked enemy is killed. This item can be found in exotic caches and is not available right away with targeted loot. You must obtain the blueprint from the Captain Lewis Manhunt mission before this is obtainable through targeted loot LMG or any random enemy drops. The Iron Lung is another exotic LMG. This time with the mods, we have Bellows, which is a magazine that gives you 35 plus rounds. Scales that gives you 10% critical hit damage. And Dragon Horns that gives you another 10% critical hit damage. The talent you get on this LMG is called Ardent, where shooting heats up the weapon, filling up heat meter, and the meter is equivalent to 50% of the weapon's standard magazine size. When the meter is full, rounds shot by the weapon ignite enemies, and when not shooting, the meter depletes over time. Reloading or swapping the weapon fully depletes the meter. And if you want to get a hold of this exotic LMG, you can farm exotic caches or LMG targeted loot. The Pestilence is next, and this is the last exotic LMG that I have for you. The mods that you get on this one are the Plagued Magazine for 10% rate of fire, the Caution Tape for 10% stability, and the Plagued Muzzle for 10% accuracy. The talent on the Pestilence is called Plague of the Outcasts. Hits apply a debuff, dealing 100% weapon damage over 10 seconds. This stacks up to 50 times, and whenever an enemy dies with this debuff, 100% of the stacks are transferred to a nearby enemy within 25 meters. This item can be farmed out of exotic caches, and you can target LMGs for your targeted loot, but also the Pestilence also has a chance to drop in the Dark Zone. Moving on to exotic SMGs now, and we're going to start with the Backfire. The mods that you get on a Backfire is a quick sight for 5% critical hit chance, barbed grip magazine for 20 plus rounds, a barbed frame for 10% stability, and a jagged muzzle for 5% critical hit damage. The Backfire comes with a talent called Payment in Kind. Dealing damage to enemies adds a stack of 1% critical hit damage up to 200 stacks lasting 10 seconds. On reload, you apply 10 seconds bleed to yourself, which deals 0.5% armor damage per stack. To get a hold of the Backfire, just farm exotic caches and targeted loot SMG. The Lady Death is another exotic SMG, and the mods that you get on this one are the Gaze of Death that give you 10% critical hit chance, the Death's Head for 10% reload speed, Death's Maw for 5% critical hit damage, and the Kiss of Death for 500% melee damage. The Lady Death comes with a talent called Breathe Free. When moving, you gain 4 stacks per second, or 8 stacks if sprinting. Max stack is equal to the weapon's magazine size. Each round fired consumes a stack, amplifying damage by 75%. Kills grant 20% movement speed for 10 seconds. You can farm the Lady Death through exotic caches or SMG targeted loot, but it also has a chance to drop from open world bosses on the New York map. Moving on to shotguns now, and we have the Sweet Dreams. Now, I've already covered the Lullaby earlier, and as I said, it's exactly the same as this, but we'll go over it again anyway. The Sweet Dreams comes with Outcast Optics for 15% accuracy, a modified feed system for 15% reload speed, and a stunner for 25% optimal range. You get the talent Sandman, where melee attacks instantly kill non-elite enemies, and that's on a 15-second cooldown. If you'd like to get a hold of the Sweet Dreams, you can find it in exotic caches or shotgun targeted loot, but it also has a chance to drop from bosses on outcast missions. Some would argue that this next exotic shotgun is the best gun in the game. It's a Scorpio. It certainly has its place. It's absolutely fantastic. So many people use it, especially for raid content because of its team buffs. So let's go over it. The Scorpio's mods, we have the Venom Glands for 10% reload speed, the Starlight Receptors for 10% critical hit chance, the Chalet Grip for 10% weapon handling, and the Achilles for 10% stability. The talent on the Scorpio is Septic Shock, where shooting a target applies stacks of venom, which lasts for 10 seconds. Increasing stacks adds more severe debuffs to the target. So 1 stack is poison, 3 is disorient, 6 is shock, 7, the target takes an additional 20% damage from all sources, and then stacks no longer increase. Duration of status effects is based on percentage of pellets hit on the applying shot. So you can imagine this is why loads of people use this in raids. When you are targeting one boss and you hit them 7 times, the damage increase is 20% across the whole squad. It's insane. Such a good weapon. And if you want a hold of this, it's not too hard to get. Just farm targeted loot shotguns or get lucky by opening an exotic cache. The Overlord is a brand new exotic right now in the game as part of the current season, so we'll go over how you get this in a moment. But the mods on this shotgun are an Overlord magazine for 15% reload speed, an Overlord optics for 15% critical hit damage, and an Overlord underbarrel for 20% stability. The talent that comes with the Overlord is Capitulate, where hitting an enemy applies minus 4% movement speed for each pellet hit for 5 seconds. Shooting the enemy again will reapply the stacks. Now, because because this is part of the current season, you have to unlock it on the rewards track, which means I forgot what level it is. It's probably about level 80, and that currently is the only way of unlocking this shotgun. Once you do have it unlocked, though, it will be added to your exotic loot pool, which means you can farm for it through targeted loot, or you can farm for it through opening exotic caches. At the end of the season, if you miss this season and you're not able to get this item, it will be added to that pool anyway. So if you're watching this video now and the first rogue season is over, just farm exotic caches and farm shotgun targeted loot. Moving on to exotic rifles now, and we've got the Merciless, just like before with the Sweet Dreams. We've already been over the Merciless through the Ruthless. We'll go back over it again anyway. The Merciless comes with Merciless Optics, which give you 10% accuracy, Merciless Magazine for 10% reload speed, Merciless Grip for 10% weapon handling, and the Merciless Muzzle for 10% stability. You get the Binary Trigger Exotic Talent, where this weapon fires on trigger pull and release. If both bullets hit the same enemy, you gain a stack. A 7 stack shooting an enemy deals 500% amplified damage and creates a 7-meter explosion, dealing 500% weapon damage, consuming the stacks. The Merciless can be farmed for outside of exotic caches or rifle targeted loot, and it also has a chance to drop from bosses on hyena missions. The Diamondback is another exotic rifle. The mods on this are the Diamondback.sight for 10% accuracy, the Diamondback Lever for 10% reload speed, the Diamondback Grip for 10% stability, and the Rattlesnake Ornamentation for 15% critical hit damage. The Diamondback comes with a talent called Agonizing Bite. Diamondback randomly marks an enemy within 20 meters. And if no enemies are within 20 meters, it marks the enemy closest to you. And then hitting that enemy consumes the mark, guaranteeing a critical hit with damage amplified by 20%. After hitting a mark, all shots fired are guaranteed critical hits for 5 seconds. A new random enemy is marked afterwards and whenever you reload. The Diamondback can be farmed for by opening exotic caches or farming rifles on your targeted loot. It can also be obtained by completing Kenley College though. It's an absolute guarantee. When Kenley College comes around, if you complete the whole of that college, you'll get into a room at the end where you open a chest and this will drop. You can do that every single time Kenley College comes around. The Dr. Home is up next, and this is another exotic rifle. The mods on this one are the Doctor's Sight for 10% accuracy, the Holmes Magazine for 10% reload speed, the Doctor's Grip for 10% weapon handling, and the Doctor's Perseverance for 10% stability. The Dr. Home comes with a talent called Dr. Home, where shooting an enemy with this weapon will apply a mark for 5 seconds. If a marked target is killed, it'll give a 10% armor repair kit, which applies to the whole party. The kit will not give bonus armor though. This weapon can be farmed by opening exotic caches and targeting rifles as your targeted loot. You can also obtain it from the General Anderson Manhunt mission. I believe it's still a guaranteed drop the first time that you complete that Manhunt mission. Moving on to marksman rifles now, and we're starting with the exotic Sacrum Imperium. This exotic comes with a Sacrum Optic for 20% headshot damage, a Sacrum Magazine for 10% headshot damage, a Sacrum Underbarrel for 20% stability, and a Sacrum Muzzle for 20% optimal range. The talent on this exotic marksman is called the Trap. It tags enemies when in crosshair to a maximum of 10, and if the agent kills any marked target with a headshot, all other targets will have 50% movement speed decreased and receive burn for 10 seconds. If it's in PvP, the movement decrease will only be 20%. The cooldown of this is 30 seconds, and killing another enemy with a headshot will shorten the cooldown for 10 seconds. Targets are marked after 1 second in the crosshair. You can farm for this exotic marksman rifle through opening exotic caches and targeting marksman rifles on your loot. Next, we have the Dread Edict. The mods for this sniper are Judgment's Glare for 40% headshot damage, Tune Tension Spring for 15% weapon handling, Fearless Frame for 10% stability, and Punctuating Barrel for 10% critical hit chance. The Dread Edict comes with a talent called Full Stop, where shooting enemies builds stacks to a cap of 20. Headshots grant 2 stacks. Each stack grants 2% weapon damage and 5% headshot damage. On reload, you'll clear all your stacks and gain 5% of your max armor as temp armor for 10 seconds for each stack removed. Headshot kills with the Dread Edict restore all bullets in the magazine. This does not count as a reload. And if you want to get a hold of this, you must get it through exotic caches until you got the blueprint. Once you have the blueprint, you can then obtain it through targeted loot marksman rifles and any random enemy drops. The Mantis is another exotic marksman rifle, and this used to be my favorite exotic marksman rifle. I used to prefer it over the Nemesis, but it did take a little bit of a nerf. It's still very good though. The mods that come on this marksman are a anti-glint coated sight, which gives you 40% headshot damage. You get a well-oiled machine, which gives you 10% reload speed, a ghillie frame for 10% stability, and a wrapped suppressor for 5% critical hit chance. The talent you get is called In Plain Sight. Your scoped view displays additional information about enemies not targeting you, and headshot and weak point damage against enemies not targeting you is amplified by 50%. Headshot kills reset the cooldown of the decoy skill, and this bonus will wait until the decoy goes on cooldown if currently active. I just love how it marks the enemy's head for you as well. It's just, I think that part of the scope is brilliant, and it's what kind of sets it aside from the other snipers. To get a hold of the Mantis, you can get it through exotic caches, or you can target your loot to marksman rifles. We have 2 exotic weapons to go, and they are sidearms. We're going to start with the Busy Little Bee. The mods on the Busy Little Bee are the Bee's Focus for 25% optimal range, the Bee's Speed for 10% reload speed, the Bee's Strength for 5% critical hit chance, and the Bee's Purpose for 10% stability. You get the Busy Little Bee talent, and what this is each shot to a different target will give 1 stack up to 10. Each stack will give 20% weapon damage, and then stacks will activate once the agent switches weapons and will last for 10 seconds. The Busy Little Bee can be farmed for through exotic caches only until you have the blueprint for the Liberty. Once you have the blueprint for the Liberty, the Busy Little Bee will drop from targeted loot pistols and also random enemy drops. And then the last weapon that we have is the Mosquito, which is another sidearm. The mods on this one is the Mosquito magazine that gives 15% reload speed, and a Mosquito muzzle that gives 15% accuracy. The talent for the Mosquito is called the Mosquito Song, where hitting an enemy applies a stack. Stacks are shared between players, and at 10 stacks, the enemy will forcefully target the last player to apply a stack for 5 seconds. Stacks deplete every 5 seconds, and activating the effect on an enemy will remove all stacks from other enemies. To get a hold of this Mosquito, you can grab it out of exotic caches, or you can target your loot to sidearms. We're now going to close this video off with the remaining exotic pieces, which are all gear pieces, starting with the Vile Mask. The Vile Mask comes with skill tier, status effects, and hazard protection, and it has a talent on it called Toxic Delivery, where status effects also apply a damage over time debuff for 10 seconds. Total damage dealt is equal to 50% of your concussion grenade damage and increased by your status effect attributes. You can farm for the Vile Mask through exotic caches and targeting your loot to masks. Next, we have the Catharsis exotic mask, and this has to be one of my favorite exotics in the game. I love to throw this on some of my raid and legendary tank builds. I think it's absolutely awesome. It comes with armor, incoming repairs, and armor regen. The talent for the Catharsis is called Vicious Cycle, where taking damage builds stacks to a cap of 30. Each stack grants 1% weapon damage. Taking damage at max stacks triggers a purge, removing all these stacks and status effects, and then dropping a healing cloud, which restores 5% of max armor for 10 seconds to all allies in the cloud. Again, I think this is brilliant, and you can get a hold of the Catharsis mask through exotic caches. Once you have the blueprint, it can then drop from targeted loot and random enemy drops. Final exotic mask I have for you is the Coyote's mask. I'm sure a lot of people know what this is. It comes with weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage. The talent that you get with the Coyote's mask is Pack Instincts. You and all allies gain a bonus based on the distance of the last enemy you hit. 0 to 15 meters is 25% critical hit damage. 15 to 25 meters is 10% critical hit damage, as well as 10% critical hit chance. And 25 meters plus is 25% critical hit chance. This has been in the game for so long, and I think it's used by so many, especially when you are in a group, because those extra crits are just invaluable. It's such a good mask. And you can get a hold of this through exotic caches or targeting your loot to masks. And on top of that, it can also drop from the boss at the end of the Jefferson Trade Center mission. You have a chance of getting it there too. Moving on to backpacks, I'm going to start with the Acosta's Go Bag. This comes with Skill Tier, Skill Haste, and Skill Damage. It has the talent called 1 in Hand and also 2 in the bag. For the 1 in Hand talent, by throwing a grenade, it refunds it and grants +1 skill tier for 15 seconds. If you're at skill tier 6 already, this will grant overcharge for 15 seconds, and the cooldown of that is every 60 seconds. The 2 in the bag talent gives you an extra armor kit on your capacity, 3 extra grenades, 20% ammo capacity, 10% repair skills, and 10% status effects. The Acosta's Go Bag has to be one of the most common exotics in the game. You can get it from exotic caches and targeted loot through backpacks, but also it has a 3% chance to drop from any enemy faction loot box. Now, I'm pretty sure that chance is higher than what it says, because you see this a hell of a lot, but it says it's 3%, and I'm sure you've probably seen this before. Next, we have the Memento backpack. This exotic comes with weapon damage, armor, and a skill tier. And you get the Kill Confirmed talent, where enemies you kill drop a trophy on death, and collecting trophies provides both a short-term and a long-term buff. The first of which scales with the number of core attributes equipped and lasts for 10 seconds. So that'll be 5% weapon damage if you are all red, 10% bonus armor for an all blue build, and 5% skill efficiency for a full skill tier build. For every trophy collected, you'll gain an additional 1% weapon damage, 1% skill efficiency, and 0.1% armor regeneration for 300 seconds. The maximum is 30 stacks. To get a hold of the Memento backpack, you'll have to open exotic caches, or you can farm backpacks on targeted loot. Next is the NinjaBike Messenger backpack, and if you played the Division 1, you know exactly what this one's about. It comes with weapon damage, armor, and skill tier again, just like the Memento, and the talent is Resourceful. Slots in with any equipped gear set or brand set item to fulfill a requirement towards unlocking a gear set bonus. It can unlock bonuses from multiple sets simultaneously. So basically, I could put 2 pieces of a brand set on with this NinjaBike and get the 3-piece bonus. And with the gear set, I could go 3 pieces on a gear set and then get the 4th to unlock with this backpack. You could also mix different gear sets together. It really does add a ton of diversity, and it's very fun to build around the NinjaBike backpack, just like it was on the Division 1. And to get a hold of this, you can find it inside of exotic caches, and also you can target backpacks on targeted loot. Moving on to chest pieces now, and we're going to start with the Collector. The Collector comes with weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage, and you get the talent Hoarder, which gives you a 3+ increase on grenade capacity, a 50% increase on grenade radius, a 35% increase on grenade damage, and then 25% grenade damage for each extra enemy caught in the blast. Automatically, you'll regenerate a grenade every 30 seconds if you have less than 2 grenades in your inventory. So if you like using grenades, this chest piece is pretty decent. I have had a few builds using this. I do find it very fun. It's great for a bit of crowd control as well. I really like it. I match this with the Lefty or the Sledgehammer talent. It's just constant sledge. To get a hold of this chest piece, again, it's exotic caches, or you can target your loot towards chest pieces. Next, we have the Tardigrade exotic chest piece. This comes with armor, explosive resistance, armor regen, and the ablative nanoplating talent. Whenever you or any ally's armor breaks, they gain 80% of your armor as bonus armor for 10 seconds. The cooldown per ally is 45 seconds, so they each have their own cooldown. And killing an enemy with your specialization weapon removes this cooldown for all your allies. This is a great piece for survivability. I don't think as many people use it anymore as they used to, but for raids, this used to be a must. Again, real good for survivability, and we still have it in my squad to this day, just to help with those flawless runs. Highly recommend it, and you can get a hold of it through exotic caches or targeting your loot towards chest pieces. And it also has a chance to drop in from any True Sons bosses at the end of missions. Moving on to gloves now, and we have the Bloody Knuckles. The Bloody Knuckles come with weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage, and you get the talent Over the Top. Damaging an enemy with a grenade or striking an enemy with a melee attack activates Seeing Red. Seeing Red grants 25% weapon damage and 100% to melee damage. Seeing Red lasts 20 seconds and has a 60-second cooldown after completion. While in cooldown, damaging an enemy with a melee attack or hitting an enemy with the effect of a grenade will complete the cooldown instantly. My favorite time to use these, I actually have a build saved with them, is for the final boss of Paradise Lost, when you're kind of like up on the archway and they're just there. It's great to just hit a melee and have that extra damage. They work very, very well. And to get a hold of these, you can get them in exotic caches or target your loot to gloves. The exotic BTSU gloves come with skill tier, skill haste and repair skills, and the talent transference overclock. This grants 15% hive skill haste per skill tier, and detonating a hive refreshes your skill cooldowns and grants overcharge for 15 seconds. If a skill tier 6, the effect also applies to all allies, and allies receiving this effect are unable to benefit from it again for 120 seconds. This piece is great on any healer builds, and I'm going to mention raids again. This is really good in raids when you're going for survivability and flawless runs, because if anybody goes down and uses their hive, every 2 minutes you're able to hit refresh on them by using the BTSU overcharge and just basically dismantling your hive. Very, very good. And if you want to get a hold of this, you can find it in exotic caches or you can target your loot to gloves, but they also have a chance of dropping from any Black Tusk enemies. Now here's another favorite exotic of mine. When these got released, even I called them trash on the PTS, but when I actually tested them out, I really do rate them as top tier. A lot of people still give me grief to this day, but I really like them. They are the rugged gloves. They are rolled with weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage. And the talent is Iron Grip, which gives you minus 50% recoil penalty when hip firing and minus 50% recoil penalty when blind firing from cover. Now just think of the talent braced on a chest piece. It basically does that in a way, but better. And you've still got your chest talent to use. So I throw these on a striker glass cannon build, and I'll use weapons that are quite good at blind firing anyway. So the St. Elmo's, a Paratrooper SVD with Lucky Shot on, and the blind fire on a weapon that is quite good anyway is just then insane. Like the Paratrooper SVD has to be one of the best blind firing weapons in the game. You match it with the rugged gloves and then you can hit across the map while blind firing and you're not taking no damage because you're blind firing. It's real good. I'm going to stop talking about them now though. I just highly recommend them. And if you want to get a hold of these, you can do so through exotic caches or you can farm for gloves on your targeted loot. On to holsters now, and we're going to start with the Imperial Dynasty. This comes with skill tier, status effects, and hazard protection, and you get the talent Dragon's Glare. While in combat, applies burn to the enemy closest to you within 20 meters, and that can happen every 35 seconds because of the cooldown. The Imperial Dynasty can be found inside of exotic caches. You can target your loot to holsters, but you can also farm cleaner missions because it can drop from cleaner bosses. The Shocker Punch is another exotic holster. This comes with armor, explosive resistance, and hazard protection. You've also got the talent Defibrillator. While Shocker Punch is equipped, The stun received by the agent from the shock status effect will be reduced by 50%. Using a shield will give 100% to melee damage, and using St. Elmo's engine with the holster will give 100% extra melee damage and will make the next melee attack to apply shock to the next target. Using all three items will offer all of the above mentioned bonuses, and the shock from the melee attack will have a 5-meter radius starting from the first target. That is on a 15-second cooldown. Personally, I have never used this item, so I have no view on it really, and I can't really give you an opinion. But if you do want a hold of it, you can get it from exotic caches, and you can target your loot to holsters. The Waveform holster is the final exotic holster in this video. It comes with skill tier, skill damage, and skill haste. You get the talent alternating current, where you generate a stack of 3% skill damage on one of your skills every second. This caps at 10 stacks. After 10 seconds at the cap, the stack transfers to your other skill. The process then repeats ad infinitum. And if you'd like to get a hold of the Waveform holster, which is very good for skill builds, you'll find it inside of exotic caches and also by targeting your loot to holsters. We just have 3 more items left of this video now, and they are knee pads. We'll start with the Sawyer's knee pads. These come with armor, explosive resistance, and health, and they also have the stand your ground talent, where you cannot be staggered by explosions, but also increases your total weapon damage by 3% each second that you're not moving. This stacks up to 10 until you start moving, and then all stacks lost 10 seconds after moving. The Sawyer's knee pads can be found inside of exotic caches, and you can find them as well by targeting your loot to knee pads. On top of that, they have a chance to drop from hyena bosses. We then have the NinjaBike Messenger knee pads. These come with weapon damage, critical hit chance, and critical hit damage, and the talent Parkour. Performing a cover-to-cover or vaulting reloads your drawn weapon and grants 25% bonus armor for 5 seconds. I don't know why, but I've never done a build around this, and I can imagine this is quite OP with LMGs. I kind of wanted to give it a go after recording this footage. You can get a hold of these knee pads through exotic caches and by targeting your loot to knee pads, but they also have a chance to drop from Dark Zone supply drops. And finally, we have the Acosta's knee pads. These come with armor, critical hit damage, and explosive resistance. The talent is called Escape Plan, where vaulting grants 10% movement speed for 3 seconds. After not moving for 5 seconds, you receive 20% movement speed for 5 seconds. And being applied a status effect grants 10% movement speed for 5 seconds. Max movement speed bonus is 20%, and the bonuses do not stack with movement speed bonuses from other sources. Minus 50% movement impairment penalty from status effects is also on this talent. And one thing I quickly want to discuss is I believe the attributes on this were the first one for a gear piece that were changeable. I'm not 100%, do correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe there's a blueprint for this, or every time you get a hold of one of these, you get different attributes on it, which paves way for the future where gear pieces could have their attributes changed, just like they did with weapons, where you could do the third attribute. That's not the case right now, but I know this was a thing in the PTS, so I thought I'd mention it. And also, the Acosta's knee pads are part of the current first Rogue season, so just like with the Overlord shotgun, you're going to need to get this off the season track. And if you come to the game later and this season is over, it will just be added to exotic caches and your targeted loot knee pads. Once you get a hold of this as well, if you are playing the current season, they'll also be in the targeted loot and exotic caches. And that is your lot. That's the end of this video. It's been a long one. I hope it's been informative. I know the last time I did this, the video did very well on views and everything, and people appreciated it. So that's why we thought we'd redo it again for 2024. I have done a website post as well that has a checklist. If you want to go and check that out, you can do. You can download that checklist, print it off, or just screenshot and save it. If you're new to the game, it's quite handy. So go and check that out. That'll be linked down in the video description. But I'm going to end the video there. Again, if you need any help with the tougher exotics in this game, be sure to come and join our community. Don't forget to smash like on this video if it has been helpful. Subscribe to the channel for more content. And until the next time, thank you so much for watching this. Take care and peace out.